on to HR Recruit's Boardroom called Imposter Syndrome. My name is Jo Thompson and I'm a consultant for HR Recruit. I'm joined today by Penny Wood from Penny Wood Talks, and she will introduce herself shortly. Penny's going to share her knowledge and insights about imposter syndrome and share some practical tips to overcome it. If you do have any burning questions or comments during the session, then please put them into the chat box facility and we'll try and cover them at the end of the session. I'm now going to hand you over to Penny, who will introduce herself and start the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo, and welcome everyone. Lovely to see you today. And you're in the right place if you want to understand how to overcome imposter syndrome and live a life where you have a place at the table, right? Without that inner voice getting there and telling you that you shouldn't be there. Now, whether you're seasoned HR professional or you're just starting your, I'm sure many of you, whether that's around fear, that feeling of failing, whether it's self-doubt, not being good enough, or feeling like a fraud, right, where you shouldn't even be where you are. But how do you get over imposter syndrome? Well, you want to, so that you can truly recognize your potential and take ownership of your achievements, right? Because you guys are highly qualified, able to be that authentic, successful leader that, you know, we all know that you can be. But today we're going to get a deeper understanding of what imposter syndrome is, how it manifests, how it drives an individual's behavior at work. We're going to look at some of the impacts for it and, you know, how it impacts you in your daily working life. You're going to discover quite a lot. And we're going to look at some of the practical things you can do to remove it. Well, let's try and get rid of it, right? Start to take a hold of it and get rid of it. But whatever you're dealing with right now, and the reason that you decided to attend today, I'm going to help you understand more about it, and you'll discover if you're exhibiting any of the characteristics. And I'm going to help you with some new strategies. So please type a hi in the chat so I know that you're there alive and kicking and ready to go. And just some housekeeping things. The session's going to be 45 minutes. It may go on a little bit more, we'll see. You will need a piece of paper and a pen, or a Word document, however you like to do things. So please get that. And time now. Leave your, shut the door, get rid of your distractions. This is your time for you to spend some time to develop yourself. So I hope you're going to enjoy today. Now, for those of you who don't know me, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a business leadership success coach, and I'm all about helping business leaders take bold action. You will see that everywhere with me. And I do that through executive coaching. I do one-to-one coaching. I do deliver leadership development programs. I coach people in public speaking. I'm a professional speaker as well. I'm based in Exeter in the UK. I'm a distinguished Toastmaster, for those of you who know what that is. It's not someone in a red coat. It's a public speaking and leadership organisation. I became a distinguished Toastmaster. It took me about 3 years to get that, but it's the highest level you can achieve in public speaking. I did that in New York. I'm part of the ILM and CMI. I recently just became chartered manager with the CMI, which was a great achievement. I also work with the Empowering Girls Network there. We had a meeting today. That's around doing mentoring. So I'm working with girls from year 9 at school to help them look at their careers, look at their futures, which I really enjoy doing that. And I've also led some really, led some big projects. I worked on, there's a project there, you'll see the $2 billion historical renovation of the United Nations when I was in the construction industry. So, I know what it's like to lead big projects, and I know your kind of pain. And I'm really committed to developing leaders like yourself. So that's enough about me. But let's get on to what we're going to do today. So I'm assuming you're here because you want to learn more about imposter syndrome, or you've experienced it yourself and it's impacting you. Maybe you've noticed it keeps on showing up in different situations, or maybe it's holding you back. And you want to live that life of accomplishment and success, but you've had enough of it, and you want some new strategies and ideas on how to get rid of it. The thing is, the really important thing is to remember you've got to evolve and develop as a leader, okay? And things will happen. I want you to get clarity around what's stopping you and why. And I want you to be able to create a robust plan to get to grips with whatever it is that's holding you back. So my goal today is to dive into imposter syndrome, look at how it's impacting you. You're going to create your plan. And then by the end of this session, I want you to be able to understand the different elements that make up imposter syndrome, understand the crippling impact it's having on you, and you're going to create some strategies to start to get rid of it. So let's talk about what's been going on. If you've been struggling with it, this is probably why. You don't want to be seen as a failure or a fraud, or you feel like you've got to work harder than other people to meet expectations, or maybe you've got the fear that you're going to mess up in some way. Imposter syndrome takes our mind over, and sometimes we just can't control it. And all these feelings combined, they can be quite overwhelming, and they can really sabotage your success if you let it. And if you allow it to take over, it can affect you all sorts of areas of your life, especially your confidence, your self-worth, and your whole way of being. But it doesn't have to be that way. It's really important for you to understand what the triggers are for you for imposter syndrome, what happens when it's in action, and then what's linked to those behaviors, because they're all kind of intertwined and interconnected. Because once you understand that, you can create new strategies to minimize imposter syndrome and potentially get rid of it, but it takes some work. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight. Now, there's a lot of things that I see leaders do when it comes to imposter syndrome, but they don't really work. They think things like, I don't belong here, despite being very intelligent, highly skilled individuals. They think they don't see themselves in that world. And, it happens when I'm coaching people a lot. Or I'm a fraud. It's just a matter of time before I get found out. They worry that they've tricked people into thinking that they're good enough, and that, at some point someone's going to find me out. Or there's another one I hear is, I don't deserve that project. They don't celebrate their accomplishments and why they're in that role. They deserve to be there, but they don't see it. But it doesn't have to be like that. The good news is I'm here for you right now, and we're going to look at some of the psychological intricacies of imposter syndrome and delve into some of the reasons why we do what we do. And then you're going to create some practical strategies to get you on your way and get rid of it. Okay. So I want, for me, aim high, everything I'm all about is about getting clarity and focus. And so the first thing we're going to do is have look at the deeper understanding of imposter syndrome, because when you get clarity about what it's really about and how it relates to you, then you can understand how to deal with it. Then I'm going to look at recognizing what you do in terms of your behavior. I want you to understand the triggers that are there for you for those behaviors. That's a really interesting one. And then finally, we're going to look at some of the practical ideas that you can do to take control of it, and even if you're just diminishing it, so it doesn't take control of you. And all these three elements combined will give you that clarity and focus to unleash your true potential, that authentic you, not that person that you're kind of forcing yourself to be. And you don't need it in your life. And I see this through my coaching, how it stifles individuals' performance and general kind of way of being. So I'm excited for you for what you're going to discover. Now, just some final instructions before we start. Get that piece of paper ready. I've got a free resource for those of you who stay to the end as a thank you. And fully transparent, I always like to be fully transparent. At the end of the session, I'm going to invite you to book a call with me to see if you would like to work together, to work on your imposter syndrome and to see how we can get rid of it. Okay? So let's get going. Now, here's strategy number one, which is all about what understanding imposter syndrome is all about, how it manifests and impacts your life. Now, let me put it into context. For the purpose of today, I'm going to call this person Sarah. Okay, so Sarah was a very talented project manager. She was working for a high-profile global consultancy. She was always doubting her abilities despite being very highly qualified, and she struggled with self-doubt, and that was stopping her from applying for more senior roles. She just didn't think she was good enough. She was comparing herself to other project managers in the office. She didn't feel that she was on the same level of them, but she was. She was really sabotaging this amazing career that I could see that she had in front of her. And she didn't realize that she was suffering from imposter syndrome. And I coached her through the detail around what it was about. And I'm going to share some of that with you today. Now, let's understand, first of all, who discovered it and how it came about. Well, it was discovered by two psychologists in 1978, Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes. Now, they were studying 150 high-achieving women who earned their PhDs, who were respected in their field. But what they discovered was that even though these women were getting a lot of praise and a lot of respect, they didn't believe that they were either bright, intelligent. Yeah, they thought they achieved their success through luck, and they thought they'd fooled everyone in regard to their intelligence and their capability. And Clance and Imes created the phrase imposter syndrome as the feelings of intellectual fraudulence experienced by high achieving women. Now, there was a lot more research being done since then, but that's where it started. And interestingly, it's not now it's not been limited to either a specific gender or a demographic. It's affected with individuals right across various different backgrounds, professions, and levels of achievement. And it's recognized today as a common phenomenon experienced by high achieving people from all walks of life. So that's kind of where it came from. Now, I want to take you through, there's a common cycle that happens with it. And when I'm talking you through this, I want you to think about what resonates with you, because it tends to be it's a circular cycle, and it starts at the beginning at the top there where you're assigned a new project, and then that circle of self-doubt kicks in, right? You may experience, you move on to number two, where you experience anxiety. Can you do it? That job that you've been assigned to, that project, that role, maybe you've got a promotion. Can you do it? And those negative memories or insecurities that you have from your past, where maybe you did a job and it didn't work out, you bring those in and into your kind of current way of being, and you start to procrastinate. You feel like a fake or a fraud. You never feel good enough. You don't belong. You're filled with self-doubt, and you tend to focus on your mistakes and your weaknesses rather than your strengths. And you focus on what you don't know rather than what you do know, and what you can't do rather than what you can do. And when that task is complete, yes, you do get a brief relief and that sense of accomplishment, but it doesn't last long. Right? The feeling of success and recognition, they're soon crushed, because you start to feel uncomfortable when people praise you. You know, you did a great job, Penny. Wow, that's amazing. Oh yeah, but I only did my bit. It was Joe. Joe pulled the thing together. That kind of thing. You have a habit of playing down your accomplishments, And you find it difficult to take credit because then you start to rationalize. I was lucky I got away with it, right? I don't deserve that recognition. Oh, somebody else could, Joe could have done a much better job than me. And then your negative inner voice takes over, and that feeling of self-doubt and anxiety starts to rise again. And then what happens is that cycle starts again, and it's a very unforgiving cycle. And if you let it, it can ruin your life. And in really extreme circumstances, if it becomes a continuing circle that you don't break, it can lead to a lot of anxiety, depression, and in really extreme cases, it can lead to kind of burnout, real burnout. So, it's a real tough thing to kind of stop going on in your head. There are also some other contributing factors. Think about this, your upbringing, your family dynamics. If you had somebody who kept telling you when you were a child, oh, you're never going to achieve anything because you're useless. If you had somebody like that in your life, you bring a lot of that through to your adulthood, because even though you achieve, those negative thoughts still take over, and that's a trigger for you. So when you start a new job, or you get a promotion, or you get a qualification, you never really embrace it. Then there are cultural and societal pressures. A lot has changed in today's business environment. We know what it's like. And then the last one there are educational and professional pressures. I mean, my God, these days to get anything, you've got to do 50 million forms. You've got to have 25 qualifications. It's crazy what you need, to get. I'm coaching some people at the moment trying to get promotions and new roles. My God, the job description's 20 pages. I mean, it's not, but it feels like that, And there's a real kind of sense that you've got to achieve, and it can really impact your professional life in terms of your performance. It can stop you taking risks, and it can can seize you taking opportunities like those promotions, and it can kind of stifle your development, and you can lose your job satisfaction. I've seen people really kind of, they just kind of have given up, and they become less ambitious. And in real extreme cases, and this is really sad, I've seen people just say, look, Penny, I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm out. I'm off. So, then it affects your personal life, your relationships, and your mental health. Now, it's important to realize that imposter syndrome is not a recognized mental illness or a problem or a health problem, okay? But it can affect your mental health in a lot of ways. And it's that cycle of, there's a lot going on in that cycle of those behaviors. So I'm going to take you through the 5 most common types of imposter syndrome in terms of behavior. Take that piece of paper and put 5 columns onto it. So the one thing, you're going to number them. Then you've got your triggers and your negative drivers. So your triggers are, so that person who presents perfectly, they never mess up. And, you messed up in a presentation 10 years ago and you're bringing that with you. So you always get triggered. So think about your triggers when you're hearing these. And then what's the negative driver for you? So your negative driver could be that you have a closed mindset. I'm not good enough. I have to work extra hard when I have to go and present. Okay, what thoughts are coming into your head when I'm going through these 5 different types? And do you identify with any of the traits and behaviors? And write down what you notice about yourself. Now, I'm going to go through this quite quickly. I've got a workbook that Joe will share at the end, that accompanies this. This is an extract from it, but I just want you to have a piece of paper. You don't need, it doesn't need to be fancy. I just want you to be able to write those 5 columns, and the pink ones we'll talk about later. So here we go. The 5 types, they were discovered by a well-renowned researcher and co-founder of the Imposter Syndrome Institute, Dr. Valerie Young. Now, let's start with the first one. Anyone recognize this? This is the perfectionist. They set excessively high goals for themselves. They often experience a real intense fear of failure. They believe that unless anything is absolutely perfect, it's unacceptable, and it leads to chronic dissatisfaction with their achievements. And despite all the external validation they might get, they may struggle to internalize their success, and they constantly feel like they haven't done enough. Now, that may not be you, but you might think, oh, have I got a perfectionist in my family? Am I living with somebody? Am I working with someone who demonstrates those traits? So, it's something for you to think about. Then I want to move on to the superhero. Um, this is the person that needs to excel in every aspect of their life, whether it's work, relationships, whatever personal endeavors they're doing. They juggle multiple responsibilities, but they push themselves to the brink of exhaustion, right, to prove their worth. But one thing that they do is they neglect self-care and they struggle to ask for help. A superhero will never ask for help, fearing that because if they do, they fear that they will reveal their perceived incompetence. They're not incompetent, but they will think that it's perceived that they're incompetent. The next one is the soloist. Now, the soloist does everything on their own and they will never ask for help because they want to prove their worth. Their only achievements that count for them are the ones that they complete on their own. And they don't want any support from anyone, and they believe they can do everything themselves. But those drivers are coming from the place of, I have to do it on my own. Nobody can help me, right? And that can be really kind of, it can be really debilitating. I know I've suffered from that sometimes where I'm like, no, I'll do it. I can do it. I'm, don't need any help. And then you do realize you do need some help. And then lastly, there's the expert. Sorry, number 4 is the expert. They believe that they've got to possess all the knowledge and skills required to fulfill their role. They're the ones that constantly want to do more certifications, more training. They want to be the best qualified because they need their experience validated. Okay, so they have to have that. If they don't have it, they're of no worth. And it's so sad because it doesn't have to be like that. But despite being highly competent, they worry about being exposed as frauds if they encounter situations where they don't have all the answers. So an expert won't like it if you call them out and they can't answer you. And it doesn't matter. The thing is, we don't all have the answers, right? None of us do. And actually, when I've been recruiting people in the past, I've always make sure that I recruit people that are better than me, because I want that level of expertise around me. Then you've got the natural genius. They believe, let me show you the natural genius. They believe their worth is inherently tied to their ability to effortlessly excel without much effort. They expect that they will always grasp new concepts immediately because they become frustrated or anxious when they struggle with any kind of new concepts or they're seen to make mistakes. They avoid challenges that may reveal their limitations, but so they want to stick to things where they know they can succeed easily. The danger with all these types of personality, these types of behavior, though, is that people work hard to go beyond, right? We all do that as professionals, but these types of behaviors, they come at it from a perspective of they're avoiding being discovered. These are the kind of negative traits around that they don't know what they're doing, that there's some kind of fraud, that their inauthenticity comes through. And that's where imposter syndrome, it really takes a hold and it takes a grip. Now, I hope there's something there that's resonated with you guys. And I want you to notice about yourself. What are your thoughts around some of those behaviors. What are your negative drivers? What are the things that you're bringing from your past into your future? Because I'm telling you, a lot of it is probably not true. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. What do you keep telling yourself that isn't true? Where do you get that validation from? Do you realize that a lot of these things that I'm showing, those kind of behaviors, they're very much limiting beliefs. And if you allow them to take control of you, you know, they can really suffocate you and hold you back. Now, you may not have all of them, you know, I hope you don't have all of them, but you may have some of them from, you know, you won't necessarily be one type, okay? There'll be bits of behaviors from the different ones, but those are the top 5. But the good thing is, and that's the first thing, is to recognize what's going on with you and your behavior so that you can address it. And, you know, you can create new strategies to help you manage it. And I think I might just have a quick pause there because I've done a whistle stop tour there. And Joe, can you see if there are any questions at this point? Anyone put any comments or any questions yet? Because I had to go through it. I'm going through this quite fast, folks, because we've got a lot to cover in 45 minutes. Okay. Anything there, Joe? Oh, no, she's not there. So I'm going to keep going and I will come back to her. No problem. So my question for you is, I hope it's got you thinking and giving you some clarity and focus around how imposter syndrome works and how it might be affecting you. Now, what's the biggest shift that you think you might need to implement to beat imposter syndrome? I want you to write that down. What's that biggest shift you need? You know, there's something now for me. I always know that I always used to think, you know, I'm stupid, right? And I've realized, and I'll tell you a story about it later on, because I had to soon pretty much get that out of my head. So, you know, what's that thing for you? There's often a phrase, something you might have heard from childhood, something that somebody said in your first job, and you've kept it with you, and now you're realizing actually that's not real at all. I'm not that person. Now, can you see my screen? Let me just check that.
I can see it, Penny, yeah.
Good. Okay, so we had a question from a lady around neurodiversity. Are you still there?
I'm here, Penny. Yeah.
Oh, hi, Claire. Good,
Hi.
good. Nice to see you. Go ahead. Please go ahead.
So my question was just around how neurodiversity may impact this. And I think you started explaining that that wasn't part of the research. And then obviously we unfortunately got cut off, Joe, didn't we?
Yeah.
Sorry, Claire.
Now,
oh, no.
yeah.
I chose the
Yeah, and you're right. Don't worry. I probably should have put a caveat about that because, you know, I've worked with a lot of neurodiverse individuals, and it's a very unique experience for them, and they have a very different experience of how imposter syndrome might take over. And that's not something that I would have gone into in detail here but I think you're absolutely right to recognize it, and that some of these traits may be experienced by individuals, but it would be a different
Sure.
element of what we're doing today. Does that make sense?
It does.
Good, thank you. How we do? Any other questions while we are? There was a lady who wanted to go back to this table. Anything you need to know?
No, thank you.
You're good?
Just
okay, can I go forward?
That I'm probably a bit of all of those behaviours apart from yes.
Don't worry, I'm sure we all are. When I read it, I was like, oh, I'm a bit of that. I'm definitely a bit of that. I'm certainly a bit of that. So don't worry. Okay, so what I was Joe, did we have any questions in the chat? Let's see if we've got any questions at this point.
There's nothing in the current chat.
Good. Okay. Oh yeah, of course, it would have been in the other chat.
Yeah, I'll see if I can go back to it.
No, don't worry. Listen, what we'll say is, if you've got a question that you want me to answer, I'll try and answer them at the end. How are we doing? Oh, yeah, we're doing okay, actually. 1:05. So let's redo the questions, and we'll take it from there. How is that?
Yeah, good.
Okay, so what I was asking you was related to this question, what's the biggest shift that you think you're going to need to make? Did you identify a typical type, or did you get a mixture of the five? And is there a limiting belief that you've discovered, or a behavior that you've identified that doesn't serve you? What's really interesting is when I'm coaching a lot of my clients, they don't see it. You know, we have our blind spot, and it takes us working through it for them to really talk me through the detail of what's happening, and then I'll recognize it, and then we'll talk about it. And has it got you thinking? Has it given you much more clarity, or has it given you more questions? Can you put in the chat either clarity, the word clarity, or the word questions? And let's see how we're doing. Joe, if you could give me an idea of how many are coming in. How many are saying they've got more clarity, or how many have said, this is just giving me more questions?
Most are clarity. There's
Good.
2 or 3 that's
Nice.
got more questions.
Yeah, good. And I'm glad to see that, because that's exactly what we want. Great.
Penny, Alison's just asked, how do you
Yes.
really identify what the trigger is when it could be a number of things that have built up that you may not recognise?
How do you identify that trigger when it's a number of things?
Yes.
Got it. Oh, there's somebody who's not on mute. I think it's Joanne. Can you mute yourself, please? Lovely. Thank you. Yeah, how do you recognize those triggers? That they can be all sorts of different things. The thing is, I think what you've got to do is just take some time to sit and reflect and look at what's going on when you start. So sometimes it's a physical thing. So you can see, you know, sometimes I get you know, like a bit of a lot of the blood comes up, right? And I'll start to get red here. So look, you can see I've got a little bit of red because we just had that little bit of technical, you know, wonderfulness. And it's kind of triggered a little bit. Oh my God, I'm not perfect. I can't present it perfectly today, right? So I think you've got to kind of just look at all the different ones and think about them and think, right, where's it coming from? Why is it there? What's been happening? Did somebody say something to me that triggered it? Because like you say, there could be all sorts of reasons why it kicks in, especially if you're not getting on with someone at work. You know, why is it that we're not getting on? What is it that they do? What is it that they say? You know, there could be all sorts of reasons, and I want you to really think about that. So I hope that's helped. Anything else, Joe, before we move on?
Yeah, Louise has asked, how do you determine whether it's imposter syndrome or when it actually might be you acknowledging you would be out of your depth or don't have the experience to go for that promotion?
Yeah, really great question. So I think what you've got to be doing is when you're going for that promotion, now some people just say, I'm going for it, right? I don't care. I can do 30% of that job description. I'm going for it. I don't care. Some people are a bit more measured and they want to look at the criteria. With imposter syndrome, you will have been either successful or you'd have had failures in the past. And what I want you to think about is, what are you bringing into your future? Are you bringing in those successful experiences, or are you bringing in those negative consequences? So I'm coaching someone at the moment who's having real trouble with moving forward like that. And we're getting into the root cause of it. And a lot of it was around, there's a lot of people in this organization. They're much more qualified than me. They should be doing that job. Well, I'm working through with them to go through and getting them to understand, well, actually, so you've got this qualification, you've got that, you've got this degree, you've got this specification, you've worked on these projects for the last 5 years. What value were they? Oh, yeah. Oh, 5 million, 25 million, Oh, another 10 million one over there. Oh, so you've been working on pretty small projects, right? And they start to go, oh, okay. So I think there's a lot of self-reflection that needs to happen there to make sure you don't bring all that kind of prejudice in your mind, and it is your mindset. Don't bring it into your future. I'm always saying that to people. Okay, so I hope that answers that one for you. Anything else, Joe?
There's a couple of other comments. Do you want to cover them at the end, or do you want me to just read them out now, Penny?
Yeah, let's go for it while we're there,
Yeah.
while we're here.
Okay, cool. So Sally has mentioned and said, whilst that you're saying imposter syndrome's not mental illness,
Yeah.
is it not connected to mental health, stroke, illness, question mark? If fear and anxiety take over, then this surely can lead to panic attacks and become a medical issue.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a journey with it. You know, like I said, there's a journey where you start getting a little bit stressed, the anxiety kicks in, and then for some people it's too much, they get burnout. You know, I've worked on some really massive projects for long periods of time, and I've seen people get burnout. And for some people, at the end of it, they take a year out because they're just so, from that high level, it's high pressure for 4 or 5 years, and then they literally come out at the end and it's like they've been through the washing machine cycle. Now, that doesn't mean to say that it's a medical condition. And if it is a medical condition, then you need to go to a proper professional to explore that. What I would say is take it as looking at those triggers and behaviors. And because each individual situation is so different, for some people, the pressure they like, and that's their adrenaline. For some people, that pressure is too much, and then it takes them down a different path. So I know what you mean, because it isn't a mental illness, but it definitely, there is a pathway where it can move through to what could become a mental illness. And that's when you need to get some proper professional help. And I think it's a case of being aware of that. What's happening? Why is it happening? When's it happening? Who's it happening with? Is there something I need to, check in here? So I hope that's answered that one. Next one, Joe.
There isn't really anything else, Penny. There's no other specific questions.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on. So now you've got an idea of where some of the issues are for your related to any imposter syndrome you've looked at. Let's move on to my third strategy, which is all about creating those practical ideas to help you overcome imposter syndrome. And so I want to take the right-hand side now, and these are going to be, now you've got on the left-hand side, you've got the negative drivers and the negative behavior that you're exhibiting. Now I want you to look at how you can reframe those thoughts and create positive drivers that will create new positive behaviors. Okay, this is harder. The left-hand side is easy because we know what's going on. This bit is a little bit harder. Okay, so if I go back to Sarah, our project manager, she wasn't applying for senior roles. She felt stuck. She was unhappy with her job. She couldn't see how she could progress. And when I was coaching her, we explored all the different reasons for what was stopping her. And she started to explore how she could combat imposter syndrome because it was crippling her success, her growth, her achievement, her happiness as well. It was really impacting her happiness. And once you've identified what's affecting you, why it's happening, this is another one, whether it's really true. The things on the left-hand side, are they really true, or are they a story that you're creating for yourself and a limiting belief? A lot of people, when we look into it and we delve into it, we realize, oh yeah, that's a limiting belief. Because then you've got an opportunity to create a different outcome, but it's up to you. Okay, you've got to do this bit of work. So let's look at some of the practical things you can do. And remember, let's write down some of your thoughts around what you're experiencing and how you could do something different. Okay, so let's look at you first of all. Develop you in terms of that's yourself. you've got a choice about moving forward. You can choose to stay stuck, or you can choose to develop yourself. So what are you going to choose? Develop your level of self-awareness and recognize those patterns in yourself, and acknowledge that you can address them. And hopefully you've identified some of those triggers and behaviors, so you understand what they are, when they happen, and why they happen. And I want you to start challenging that negative self-talk in your head, and start to reflect and think about, how can I reframe my thoughts? Recognize that the information that you had in your original thought, it might be outdated. And you might be bringing something in from your past that isn't accurate anymore. Let me tell you, this is what I'm going to tell you, a story. I had myself, I always have a coach myself. I had a coach when I was in New York. And when I was working at the United Nations, you know, it's a $2 billion job. It was a historical renovation of the entire headquarters. It was a beautiful job. And at one point, my coach said to me one day, he said, "Penny, what's going on with you?" And I said, "Well, I don't really know. I don't know. Should I be here?" And he said to me, "Look," he said, if you weren't capable, I'm telling you, you would not have a place at that table." And we went in and we looked at that and we talked it through. And, you know, because I just thought of myself as Penny from Tiverton in Devon. You know, Devon's in the middle of nowhere. It's like nothing going on. You know, how can I end up going to the other side of the world, being in one of the most famous, iconic buildings in the world, you know, sat there seeing presidents, the Queen, all sorts of people. How could I be there? You know, it was quite overwhelming when I first got there. And when we worked through it, we realized that those thoughts I had, they were outdated. Now they go back to something that happened when I was younger, when I was at school and I thought I was useless. I don't want to go into that today, but basically it was that trigger at 11 years old when I thought I just couldn't do something. And I was bringing that 11-year-old thought into my future. And I've been doing it for years. And I'm telling you, when I decided to give that up and I got rid of it, it's out the door. I'm telling you, I turned into a different person. So really, I want you to think about what's outdated. And I want you to remove, first of all, I want you to remove the negative thoughts. And I want you to remove that language. Write down what you tell yourself. And it's not true. Okay, so think about that. In terms of your behavior, I want you to think about new habits that come from an authentic place, right? Not from a place of fear. So let me explain that. I was coming from a place of fear before that story I was telling you about with my coach in New York. Then I came from a place of authenticity. Yes, I do deserve to be there. Yes, I have a right to be at the table. And it's about recognizing those drivers and beliefs under the behaviors that aren't working for you, and really challenge the evidence that you have, okay? Because it can be out of date, and realize those limiting beliefs you have, and, you know, embrace failure and imperfection and see them as a learning opportunity. You know, you won't get it right every time. So what are you going to do next time something doesn't work out? How are you going to look at that situation differently? Because you have a choice to take a different path, right? This is about, you can take a different direction. Number 2 is around building your self-confidence. I want you to back yourself more. I want you to recognize and celebrate your achievements, no matter how small or big they are. This is really important on a day-to-day basis. You know, some days, if you just get through the day, that's enough, right? But other days, you will achieve phenomenal things. But I want you to recognize the small wins and the big wins. Practice self-compassion and forgiveness. That's a big one. Realize that you're not going to get it right every time. And how are you going to forgive yourself? You know, today you might be really struggling, but you're not going to struggle tomorrow necessarily. So have some self-compassion and forgiveness around yourself. Develop a growth mindset. Move away from those fixed mindset statements you say. Instead, I want you to say, I can do this, so that you continue and grow and learn your expertise. Yeah, maybe you haven't got something yet. The lady was asking about that promotion. Maybe you're not quite there yet. Well, you'll get there. Okay. Visualize those positive affirmations. I am good enough. I deserve a place at the table. Now, when I get people to do these privately, it feels weird, right? Sometimes I get them to do them standing in front of me and I get them to shout them to the back of the room, right? But I want you to get into doing those positive affirmations and write them up. I have a lady who's written them up. Her daughter's written them up for her in lots of different colors, and she's got them on the wall right by a monitor, and she looks at them every day. It's a beautiful thing. So I want you to build that self-confidence back up. Also, I want you to strengthen your resilience. Recognize those feelings of self-doubt, that they're feelings rather than facts. Okay? Feelings rather than facts. Develop coping mechanisms when setbacks happen, when you experience challenges. What are those for you? Now, I have a few things. I have somebody who holds me to account. And as soon as I have a setback, we're on the call. It may only be 5 minutes. This is what's happened. Right. How am I going to get myself in that right mindset to move forward? Learn from those failures and setbacks. Surround yourself. This is another one. Surround yourself with positive people. Remove yourself from those Debbie Downers. The ones that bring you down. They're always negative. Oh, they're like energy suckers. When I started getting rid of all those energy suckers in my life, it totally changed. I'm telling you, that is a game changer. Talk to people you trust that will help you realize that those feelings of inadequacy, they're irrational. All right. So remember, feelings and facts, they're very different. And prioritize your self-care and your mental health. What could you do to practice mindfulness, meditation? Do things that make you feel good. Now, in lockdown, I was walking like a maniac and I kind of gave it up, and I've got back to being a little bit lazy. I'm going to start doing it now. The beautiful weather's happening. I'm starting to do it and it's making me feel better. So it's that self-care in the middle of the day. It's a 15-minute walk and I just lifts my mood for the afternoon. The last one is around being more assertive, especially in your communication. Are you setting boundaries? Do you advocate for yourself? Are you asking for support? Are you communicating in a confident and authentic manner? So I really want you to think about being a little bit more assertive around what you want. What are your needs? What are your desires? What do you need help with? And be really clear about that. I was doing this with a client recently who was preparing for a job interview and they really wanted it. And, imposter syndrome was really holding them back and they weren't able to kind of articulate their experience in a really kind of uplifting way. And when I heard it, I was like, it doesn't inspire me. I want to be inspired. You're a very competent individual, but I wasn't inspired. So I want you to think about how you communicate, what comes out of your mouth. Think about it. And when that negative voice is there, the one on the left-hand side, I've got a choice. I can make a different choice about what's going to come out of my mouth. Okay. The main thing is that you need to realize that as long as your behaviors driven by the right underlying beliefs, which is, I want to improve, I want to develop, I want to expand my expertise, but not coming from a perspective of, I'm not good enough. I've got to work harder. I've got to prepare more so that people won't think I'm a fraud and I don't know what I'm talking about. if you get rid of that perspective, you'll be able to beat imposter syndrome. And out of today's session, I want you to start keeping a diary of your monthly wins. Keep it as a tracker so you see your progress. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, and it does take time, but it's a discipline and a routine and a change of mindset. Now, I hope that you've got some actions there of things that you're going to make some changes for. I don't care what it is. This isn't a competition. I just want you to put in the chat some numbers of how many actions you've come up with. How many things have you thought about? Right, I'm going to change that. Right, I need to get rid of that. Right, that person's out of my life. I'm done with them. I don't want to know what they are, but how many? Joe, if you give me an idea as numbers start coming through, just shout them out. It's not a competition, right? You don't need to have hundreds. Even if it's just one today, I'll be really happy with that.
We've got 4, 6. Candice's put she's 2 minutes to count.
Great.
3, 2, 4, 3.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really glad that you've got, something you can take away today, because imposter syndrome doesn't have to rule over you, and you can do something about it. It's a battle. It takes practice, but you can overcome it and win. And the thing is, you won't, how many of you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, right? That goes away. I'm telling you, that waking up in the middle of the night, it disappears. And by beating it, you're going to be much more confident. You're going to be able to aim high, unlock that true potential that you are. You're going to feel more fulfilled with what you do, more relaxed and happy. Oh my God, I had somebody who I coached last year, and she said, Penny, one of the things I got with you, my husband told me I'm a lot happier. So, I want you to really kind of embrace all of that, but you've got to do the work, and you've got to do, that bold action. So all those of you who put those numbers in today, and you've got those numbers on your paper, I want you to make sure you get into bold action, okay? Because you've got the opportunity right now to ditch imposter syndrome and create that life you really want. You can create your success. Be aware of your triggers, make different choices, and create that blueprint. Look at that lady in the middle there. I love that picture of her. She's got so much effervescence about her, right? That's where you can be. And I really want you to succeed. And, you're ready to let go of all those things that might have been holding you back. Now, I want to share with you a story of a lady that a client of mine. She had an amazing transformation through the coaching experience related to imposter syndrome. Now, she was a highly qualified, very experienced person, but she didn't see that. Imposter syndrome had really taken over with her. She felt she wouldn't be recognized as a senior leader in the organization, despite having the ability to do the job. Now, all these different elements, many of them coming from imposter syndrome, led to a lot of frustration for her. And through coaching with me, she was able to identify the kind of new positive drivers and behaviors she needed to implement. And some of that was around changing people's perception of how they saw her. She thought they thought she was X, but she was Y. She was hiding, and she kind of needed to know that she could lead at that level. And she did several things to create that visibility so people could see how she was as a leader. She kind of blossomed. It was a beautiful thing. And in 3 months, after working with me, she secured that senior leadership role. It was an amazing result. She totally changed as an individual. She was smiling a lot more. She'd come onto our calls and she was smiling. I mean, it was brilliant. And she got rid of all those things that were holding her back. And I asked her what she got from working with me. And she said she got clarity on what wasn't working, what was holding her back. She realized that nothing was going to change. So creating those new strategies for her was a game changer. And coaching gave her the confidence to take that bold action so that she could step into that new future kind of powerfully. She absolutely loves her new job, by the way. And do you know what she said to me? I couldn't believe it. I got emotional myself. She said she discovered her worth. I mean, it just gives me tingles even saying it. It's an amazing thing for someone to discover, and it makes me really proud that the work I can do to change people's lives in such a positive way. It's what I love to do. And for you, you've got the opportunity, just like Sarah, to ditch imposter syndrome and unleash, your true potential. Don't wait. Make it happen. Whatever you need to do, I want you to believe that you can do it, aim high and be that leader you want to do, that you really want to be. And I hope you got some quick wins together today. You got a deeper understanding of what imposter syndrome is about. You got an understanding of some of your triggers, why they happen, and what you need to do to make that change happen. And you've worked out what you're going to do next. Now, today we've only dipped our toe into the water around it. And just imagine what it would feel like to have the opportunity to take a deep dive into everything you've thought about today and completely rejuvenate your way of being for success. Well, you can do that as part of my Aim High coaching program. I can help you ditch imposter syndrome for good. Imagine how that would feel like. You've got someone who can help you get out of your head and get rid of those limiting beliefs and create that future you really want. Joe, if you got that link ready, can you start putting that link into the chat, please? That would be great.
Is that for the workbook, Penny?
Pardon?
Is that the workbook?
No, that's the link for the call.
Oh, beg your pardon, sorry.
Yeah.
Got it.
Got that one? So whilst Joe is doing that, I want you to think about what bold action you're going to do. And, you might be thinking, can I face all those challenges that I wrote down today? Is that next step? Is it too far? Well, that maybe you want to keep your head below water, ignore what's really going on and hope that things will get better. Well, it's easier to stay in your comfort zone, right? We all know that. But I'm telling you, it's possible to ditch it and achieve more, dream big, become that confident leader that you really want to be. And I've given you stories of real people today that have made it happen. And I really want, if you're ready to do the work and you really want it and you're excited about it, you got to understand that it's only by facing those challenges, right? The things that are holding you back, that you're going to get rid of it. And you got to take bold action and stop that procrastination. And one of the things that you can do is do your Beat Imposter Syndrome, book your Beat Imposter Syndrome call with me. Now, on that call, that's your first step to achieving your new goal. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to do two things for you on that call. I'm going to help you get clarity on what triggers you and what's related to imposter syndrome for you and why, and understand why it's holding you back. And then I'm going to help you work out one major bold action that you need to do to deliver on, to get your big dream for 2024. There's still a way to go. There's a lot to achieve. I'm talking to people who are just looking to do amazing things, and I can't wait to see these things unfold. And let's have a chat and see if we can work together. Now, whilst you're doing that, I want you to think about this being your get out of jail free card, bold action call. And it's there for the taking, okay? And I'm excited for you. And I'm here to help you and coach you through it. Now, for those of you who've stayed to the end, thank you very much. I want to be of service to you and to help you work through all those things that are stopping you. I've got my guide on 10 tips on how to overcome procrastination. Joe will be sending that out to you. And it'll help you look at what you do when you get stopped, and it will give you some ideas on how to overcome procrastination. Everyone who attended live today, you're going to receive a copy of my workbook, which accompanies this session. So I hope you find those useful. And lastly, really, whilst you're booking your call, does anyone have any questions that we've heard today? Joe, we got any more questions? I'm happy to stay at the end as we lost a little bit of time there.
Yeah, there's no other questions. Joanne, you've just put about the workbook. I'll be sending those out in the follow-up email this afternoon.
Good. Okay, great. Well, look, I hope you enjoyed today's session. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can do it very quickly using your camera with this QR code. You can message me, email me. I hope you've enjoyed today. I'd love to do if you did a quick post on LinkedIn and tag me. For those of you who need to go, thank you for coming today. And I hope to see you again soon. So enjoy the rest of your day and thank you for coming.
Thanks very much, Penny. I'll just do a very, very quick close because I'm just conscious of time. So we've got another event that's running on Thursday called Managing a Neurodiverse Workforce. A link will be sent out to that this afternoon. I will be putting a post on LinkedIn. So if you would like a copy of the recording or if any of the handouts, then please put a post against the LinkedIn comments. But otherwise, I'd just like to say a massive thanks to Penny for running the session and to everyone that's signed in. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.